So now we're going to look at ways that companies can turn to larger partners. Both strategics and entrepreneurs are looking for growth and innovation. And one of the ways strategics have been doing it is by ramping up investment in entrepreneurial companies. And there are many different partnership models. I mean, you know, there are people who sit around and come up with partnership models all day, right? That go beyond just outright acquisition. There's corporate venture, there's multi-step deals that help emerging brands scale. And today we're going to offer a lens into the thought process and partnership structure between an emerging brand, venture capital, and corporate M&A, and how they're working together to build scale. Now, at a time when consumers are moving more quickly to plant-based alternatives to traditional dairy, it might seem like a fit for a long-time dairy brand like Dean Foods to get involved with a rising alternative dairy brand. But which one, and how do you ensure fit? How do you make it a successful partnership for everyone? How do you finance it? And if you're the entrepreneur, how do you pick the right partner? To go through a deal breakdown of why Dean Foods sought Good Karma, we're going to invite on stage Doug Radi, the president and CEO of Good Karma Foods, Sharon Kieffer, the managing partner of 2X Consumer Products Growth Partners, and Alex Jacobs, the vice president of corporate development and strategy at Dean Foods. And they're going to take us through the deals that have brought growth to all three organizations. Come on up, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to kick us off here with a little bit of history of Good Karma Foods. Not sure how many of you are aware, but the company actually has a history as well of over 20 years. It was founded in 1996 and served as a private label focused business, actually serving the role between retailers and co-manufacturers. The reason that's important is they became really expert at coming up with really fabulous formulations early on in the plant-based world. As many of us know, early on, a lot of the products really didn't taste great. When we first tasted these products, they stood out as best in class. It wasn't until 2012 that Good Karma actually launched its first branded business. You can kind of see the package over here on the right, the flax milk. In 2014, we decided to partner with Good Karma Foods to help bring that branded business to the next level. Now, what had us excited about this business was a number of things. It showed a lot of promise in what existed at the time. First and foremost, I talked about the Grace tasting product. It was smooth, it was creamy, it really did taste a lot like milk. And it was a differentiated product. It had a lot of positive attributes from a nutritional standpoint versus just free of dairy, which many of the products at the time had. It was in a growing and on-trend category. You've heard a lot about this over the last day or so. But at the time, a third of consumers were already starting to use this type of product in their household. And this one in particular was one that was celebrated or being celebrated by consumers as kind of mainstream. It wasn't too high-end. It was approachable. It was something that they like to use that on an everyday basis. It had demonstrated success in the natural channel. This is something that we thought was important, but more importantly, we were able to tell that it had appeal among the non-conventional channel, or into the conventional channel beyond natural channel. It has strong appeal among millennials. At the time, it was about a third of millennials were appealing to this product. The latest data shows that 3/4 of all millennials now have non-dairy beverages in their households. So we saw that trend coming along with this great product. And we had a healthy financial profile to work with. But of course, there was a lot of upside on this business that was nowhere on the product at the time, in particular the brand. I mean, Good Karma, I don't think I could come up with a better brand name anywhere. So we decided to undertake making this brand come to life in the marketplace with a package redesign and brand development that Doug's going to talk about in a bit. We also believe this could be extended into new products, which I think many of you heard Doug talk about yesterday, into the yogurt platform. And we wanted to make sure the business was ready to scale. At the time, the CEO of the business wanted to retire. And he really wanted to bring in a world-class team and some capital to help bring this to the next level. So this was a business that was really kind of under the radar, really good product, with someone who wanted to help take it to the next level. So the CEO and I went out and started to look for the next leader of the organization. We happened to find Doug, who we are thrilled to have as the CEO of Good Karma Foods, and he came in at the onset of the investment and helped lay out the plan that helped take this business to the next level. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Doug. Oh, here we go. I didn't realize there was a slide added in. So we have, you know, this was really kind of the trifecta is the way that I like to talk about it. We had a really good, promising brand here. Like I said at the beginning, it was a really good product. The brand was a bit sub-optimized. But from a capital standpoint, we felt really strongly with our expertise and along with the team that we wanted to bring into place, this was going to really be taken to the next level. So with that, I will hand it over to Doug.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us up here, and really excited to share the Good Karma story with you. I want to talk about what we did to build the foundation and really enabled a lot of fabulous growth over the last couple years. But before I do that, I actually wanted to talk about a different foundation by the same name, and that's this concept of Good Karma. We heard GT Dave yesterday talk about leading businesses with your heart, and I was just telling the Guayaki guys, tough act to follow. Amazing stuff. One of the things I love about this industry is you can be competitors and friends, and everyone can win together. And that's the most amazing thing in this industry. And I find it an amazing personal privilege to lead a business called Good Karma, because this concept of this golden rule has always been incredibly important to me. Everybody know it's Stephen Covey's emotional bank account. It's a business concept, but it's actually a relationship concept. And that is, it's like a bank, your relationship with another human being is like a bank account. You can make withdrawals and you can make deposits. And I've always been one of those people that think about adding more than I take. And so when I was approached with the opportunity to lead a brand and a business called Good Karma, it sort of felt absolutely at home for me, and a natural sort of just progression of who I am as a human being. And you'll see that theme in a lot of things I talk about. And if you don't believe me on this Good Karma thing, let me tell you a little bit of story about this Good Karma. So I had been involved with a business that we sold in 2014, and I took about 4 or 5 months off in the latter part of 2014. And literally 4 years ago this week, I had been talking to the 2X team for about 4 or 5 months about this business, where we would go, and this concept of partnership and being aligned on what we want to do with it. 4 years ago this week, I dropped my kids off at school, and I am relaxed. I mean, I had never been mountain biking more in my life. I mean, I am just, you know, for a type A, I am the most relaxed I've probably ever been in my life. And I pop into a coffee shop, and there's about 7 or 8 people in line, and right in front of me is this bubbly, amazing, just persona millennial, and I get up to the front of the line, and she pays it forward and buys my cup of coffee. Not an unusual thing, right? It happens. And I'm typical me. I'm sort of like, hey, thanks, you didn't really need to do that. That was really, really kind. And she goes from this bubbly personality, like knew everybody. I thought it was Norm from Cheers. I mean, I don't know if she's ever been in there before, but it looked like she goes in there exactly the same time every day. And she goes deadpan. And I was just about to decide were we going to form this partnership with 2X and were we going to do this thing together? She goes deadpan and she goes, "It's all about good karma." And I was like, and I must have looked like a ghost. She goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "You will never believe what you just said to me." And this concept of it comes around and it goes around and we all lift and win and do this together is something that's really near to my heart, and it happened for me personally, and it's happened many times on this business. So back to the stuff that we've done. As we started to look at this partnership and what we wanted to do, one of the things is we moved the company to Boulder, Colorado. I mean, it's an awesome place to work. I've been there for years. And it's just an amazing ecosystem for natural products. But the other thing we really looked at was building out, as Sharon said, a world-class team. And the way I define that is two fronts. One, most of us on the team have had big brand and little brand entrepreneurial experience. And we love to bring the skills that work really well in the big companies that can be applied to little companies, but do it in a way that we can do it fast, entrepreneurially, and innovatively. So we built an entire team around that. I'll talk about some of the other things we did with that. But the second and probably most important thing we did was around culture and this concept of giving and good karma. And really, we spent all of our time as a team talking about what that meant and recruiting people. And I've kind of joked that it was a little bit like the cocktail party last night. We just found each other in the corner of the room. And then we just looked at each other and we all said, "Hey, let's do this thing." We all really love it. And the team's amazing. I feel like I work with all my brothers and sisters. We fight, we come up with great ideas, we work together, and at the end of the day, it really does feel like a family. So building this team was probably the most important thing we could do. And I love working with this team. I get up every morning, I love these guys and this team, they're amazing. Second thing we did is knowing that it's an entrepreneurial start, the company was about 2 years old, it needed some TLC. We had a lot of work to do on our supply chain and our go-to-market system. And this is where you take the big CPG skills and bring it to market and bring it to the team. My first spring there, I was 3 or 4 months on the job and we're fulfilling 70% of orders. Yeah, it's a little tough to grow with customers and to gain credibility with customers when you can't deliver product. So bringing in a pretty traditional CPG planning and demand planning and forecasting model and bringing some of the best of those skills, but doing it in a way, and as I joked with our CFO, I was like, "Can you build this in Excel?" He's like, "I think so." And so we did it entrepreneurially and we put it in place. So building some of the core supply chain stuff, the same thing with partners. We were a little, and we still are, the little engine that could in terms of this category and our brand and the size of company. So finding partners that believed in us and would invest with us in this business. So from co-manufacturing to distribution to other services and parts of the supply chain, it was really important to reset and build that foundation, and it enabled our rapid growth since then. And then lastly, we had some early insights into the brand, and we knew millennials were attracted to the brand. We knew that we had an interesting neutral taste. We heard it from consumers. We knew that we were allergen friendly. We knew that we were one of the few, if not the only, with plant-based omega-3s in the category. But how do you put all that together within the context of the category and build a winning strategy from a brand? What does the brand stand for? How do you take it to market? What's your point of differentiation? How do you talk to consumers about it? How do I talk to retail customers and distributors about it? And doing a lot of foundational work on the consumer and the category to understand who we are, where we are, and where we want to take the brand, and then build a 3-year growth plan out of it. And it started with a brand relaunch. My favorite, I think I was about 7 months on the job, and you saw the larger picture on the slide before, but I was reading in the Wall Street Journal and was talking about millennials, and we had already sort of thought about millennials. as you know, they're diving into plant-based like no other cohort we've seen in terms of generational cohort. And the Wall Street Journal was talking about how millennials are going to really change consumption across so many categories, and it's happening. And the last line in the article was, "Millennials don't read cursive." And here I am, a brand guy, and I go, oh boy, we got problems. And you know, but at the time when we were the only flax milk, you scream flax milk, right? That's what our founders did. That's what we pushed to. But the idea here is we really needed to build a brand. So turning those consumer insights into this new brand look with a really approachable, friendly, optimistic brand. Good Karma is about optimism, inspiring goodness. We had to deliver that. And so in late 2015, this is what you saw come to market. And then since then, we've really expanded the platform, as Sharon mentioned, into the yogurt segment, into single serve and other shelf-stable formats, largely still plant-based milk and plant-based yogurts. And so this was really about the foundation. But really what we're here to talk about today is the partnership. So about 2 years into this journey with the new brand, I would say that we had a really interesting story. We were growing like crazy. Lots of high fives in the hallway, tons of issues, like we all have, all entrepreneurs and all scaling businesses have. But we were really proving out this concept and validating the hypothesis. We really felt like we had something. And so, ability to platform, strong growth in the channel. We almost doubled our share in the natural channel. We were expanding aggressively in conventional. But while all that was happening, we looked around the marketplace and what else was going on. The plant-based revolution, which I've worked in the category before, was like nothing we'd ever seen. The growth in plant-based milk is almost 10% of all fluid milk sold today, continuing to grow. And 10% growth in that category is $200 or $300 million annually in just absolute dollar growth. So huge numbers. And then you start to see cheese and yogurt and meat alternatives. I mean, we are absolutely in a revolution right now, which is the most exciting thing ever. But with that comes a ton of growth capital, a ton of new competitors. I can't tell you how many new types of milk. Had sesame milk for the first time ever. It's pretty good. But with that, we looked at the category and said, wow, we're still a little engine that could. Where do we go from here? So there's a decision point. And we added up. We looked at the growth capital and in large incumbent brands and their investments in the category. We think it's somewhere north of $800 million in the last 3 years. It's a crazy amount of capital investing in the category. So what do? Do we look for a partnership? Do we raise more capital and join the arms race? How do we think about the partnership as we want to continue this journey of Good Karma that we're on? And where we netted out, and I'm going to hand off to Alex to talk a little bit from the Dean Foods standpoint, but we loved the idea of, sure, it takes capital to grow businesses, but commercial muscle helps. And in particular, what we'll hear from Alex, this idea of, and I used this word picture yesterday, we're this little skinny adolescent kid, I was 6 foot tall, 125 pounds, and I got a big brother that's, fully developed in muscles and, a lot to learn from.
Contrast.
A lot to learn from and a lot of scale and a lot of things like that. And, an example is we buy, X millions of cartons, they buy 100 times that many. Some pretty interesting opportunities from pricing. So there's so many little low-hanging fruit like that. And so we pushed forward and we developed a partnership with Dean Foods. It became a minority investment in 2017 and a majority investment in the company this summer. And we're really excited to be partnering with them. And let me pass it off to Alex a little bit to talk about it.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Well, for us, it starts with the fit with our strategy, which is to buy and build brands. That was what initially attracted us to Good Karma. It was also highly complementary to some of our growth brands, which are similar from our perspective in terms of how they fit into our portfolio. That would be Uncle Matt's and our Organic Valley Fresh joint venture. And as Doug mentioned, we have a lot of resources as it relates to distribution, procurement, sales force. We have a lot of resources there, but it's a precious resource from our perspective. So we're looking for brands which can strongly benefit from those resources, but where we're committed to providing the focus to make that happen. And that was, we thought that Good Karma was, kind of the brand for us in this area. What we like about it, I don't want to be repetitive, but it's important. It provided diversification for us in plant-based, which we think is critical for us in the long term. Provided an improved presence in the natural channel. We have a strong channel presence across kind of U.S. food, but we wanted to bulk up in natural. And in terms of the innovation that Doug talked about, that was really important to us. And we saw a team that, while small, was highly focused and highly capable. And even though we have our own innovation resources, we're always looking for more. And we felt, frankly, we had a lot to learn from the team as it relates to rolling out new products very rapidly, and good products. And we love the brand equity because this is a very crowded category. And we don't want to hyper-segment things. We're looking for a brand which we can get behind and extend that brand more broadly across the store into wherever the consumer is going to go. Not today, but in the next 3 to 5 years. And we thought that this brand had the ability to do that, especially with the great redesign which Doug led. And we really like the consumer base for us, which is very important. So I think with that, let's begin the dialogue.
Well, please have a seat. Just a quick question, as long as I got you here, though. You said you want to build and buy strong brands. How many are you planning to buy?
Well, that you'll have to see. We'll have to see what we do. I mean, we don't have a target, but we're looking to deploy capital. As I said, we have very strong distribution capabilities in the U.S., particularly in cold chain, and that's something we want to leverage. That's central to our strategy.
All right, so let's pull it back to this sort of multi-step deal. Why was it the best approach for each party in the deal?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
As Doug kind of laid out, it just seemed to make sense to bring a bit of additional capital as well as the muscle to the party. I mean, we were in partnership, things are going really strong, and frankly, we started to garner a lot of interest from other parties. So, we had the decision of what's the right partner to bring on board. And given the situation in the marketplace, given where this brand was from a development standpoint, a bit more capital combined with the operational capabilities of a Dean Foods just seemed like the right fit at the right time. Versus just bringing in a bunch more capital, the capabilities were important.
As an investor, you have to think, well, maybe we should just try and take the money off the table now, though, right? Can't we exit now and find someone to do the deal with all the way as opposed to partial? So what was it tempting to try and hold a sale that way?
Well, never say never that you won't sell a business at the right price, but it seemed like there was a lot of runway left on this business, and we still believe that is the case. When Doug and I started out on this journey, it was really about a vision we had for the brand, and the business has come to life extremely quickly, and we believe still in the runway to go on it. So there's not really a rush to leave it if you believe there's a lot more to go and to do on it. We're all in it for the partnership, and I think we're all together working to grow it to be the biggest business it can be. So it's not always about the sale, it's about building the business and building the platform to its potential, and then that's what I think we're all here to try and do.
All right, and how was multi-step right for Good Karma?
Yeah, I sort of equated it to some of the relationship dating shows you see on TV. I don't watch a lot of them, but I know there's the one that you meet this spouse or this partner for the first time, and then they do all the drama with that. And then there's one that's more courting and long-term and getting to know each other. And for me, the spirit of good karma and finding right partners, and folks that know me know that they love doing business with me because fair, honest, transparent all the time. I thought the idea of having a multi-step and allowing us to get to know each other was a critical piece. The second piece is there's a lot of resources, but maybe not all of them are perfect or at the right time for us. And someone asked me yesterday, hey, what's it like? And I said, it's really quite amazing. It's when I ask for help, there's a lot of really interesting resources there. And when I'm not asking for help, I just get some broad-based support that keep going. And so I think there's mutual alignment on what we're trying to do and mutual alignment about how and when we dip into the system. And, Walmart, we saw the Walmart team yesterday, and they're making aggressive inroads into products like ours. But even a little brand like ours, it's hard to get the phone answered.
And it's hard to get enough time on the trucks, too. Right?
Certainly. But when you have some conversations and there's a big brother in the room that does get the phone answered, it really is a game changer for the brand. So there's all those kinds of examples where I think the multi-step enabled us to take our time and get to know one another and apply the muscle in the right places.
I guess I say for partnership deals, it's not for everyone and it's not for most deals probably, but I think for this one it really made sense. Mm-hmm. And the central reason, at least for me, is that one of the things we really liked about Good Karma is we saw the potential for growth. And there is an opportunity right now in this market to grow this brand. And the last thing we wanted to do is engage in a transaction which would in any way impinge upon the growth of the brand and the potential that it could reach. So we had this unique environment where, Doug and his team, 2X, and us all cared primarily about growth. Right. And we collectively formed a structure which would facilitate that growth, provide resources as necessary, but not do anything to harm the potential of it. And the way I would characterize this is it's a combination of very professional governance and a very clear sense of what we're in this partnership to do. And we're all aligned at the beginning. We laid out those kind of rules, so to speak, and then allowed the game to play out. And that game is, seizing the momentum of the brand and the market potential, innovation, and just letting Doug and his team do what they do best.
What are some examples of the moat that you built?
In terms of governance?
In terms of governance, in terms of, where can you go in, where do you have to stay out?
I think a lot of it starts with, our initial agreement and the highly professional board structure which we created, and I think that's been very important to us.
Board structure's one. Who is it? Are there clear places where Dean has responsibility and clear places where Good Karma does, or is it all Good Karma turning up to Dean?
I think there's a formality to it, but for me, I actually don't. I think a little less about that and a little more about just great people partnering together.
I agree.
And so I've been, I have 4 board members from Dean out of 7, and they've been incredibly supportive. And it's more, not unlike the board that I reported to before versus the board now. It's just more of the same, just with different people in the chairs. And so I actually just look at it as a partnership, and whether it's someone with sales expertise or marketing or finance or that can just come help us and help us think through business issues.
I agree with that. This has been a journey of a brand and a business that's being built out with everyone bringing what they can bring to the table. So there aren't rules. We don't have time. We don't have frankly, energy for dividing things up. We're all working together to grow a business to its fullest potential with Doug's lead. So he will reach out to any one of us as we need. Right. And, we're all working together, whether it's, me on the phone with someone from Dean or Doug on the phone with me or Alex or whomever. That's what we do. So, it's interesting to try and create a scenario where, how do these three people work together? But we're basically a team.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it comes down to doing what you need to do to make the business successful.
So let's bring it back to the business for a minute. How do you keep entrepreneurial spirit thriving when you're also majority owned under this structure now?
I mean, we talk about it all the time. I mean, back to, I'm just a transparent person, and I talk about the mission and the journey we're on. And whether it's personal or professional, meaning as a team member of Good Karma, it shouldn't matter. I mean, again, it's about being additive to society and additive to business and additive to team members and all that kind of stuff. So if you first buy into that, and we've built an entire culture around that with 20 employees, then the other part of it's easy. The discussion's easy. That, my response to is the partnership is here to help do more of what we're passionate about, and it doesn't change what we're trying to do at all. And you get into 18 months into it or whatever, and everything you said is true. It's not hard to keep the entrepreneurial thing going at all. In fact, and I
what told you everything you said was true, though? So 18 months in, what are the proof points?
Well, that one, back to the team perspective, there's been virtually no changes from the team's perspective. That we're still growing, we're still building the business, we're building our careers. Team members are getting a chance to take on new and exciting roles and business challenges. We're adding people to the team, all that kind of stuff. We're adding customers, we're adding consumers, everything's additive. And, so I think the combination of that plus the support we get from the partners on stage, just our natural, sort of end of chapter discussions on, this is what we're on our journey, and we just have different people helping us.
I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, how much did 2X initially invest?
In terms of dollars?
Yeah.
Don't really want to share that.
Okay.
But it was enough to give the company the comfort it needed to have a runway. And
you are active investors. You take strong roles within companies once you're invested, right? You're applying your sort of professional skills to.
Yeah, I mean, my background is an operator for 20 plus years in CPG. So I was worked in innovation and marketing, and I love to build brands. And that's why when Doug and I started having the conversations about this brand, we could see something that wasn't existing. And frankly, at the beginning, it was just a couple of us kind of working on stuff together. And so at that time, we were extremely involved in the business. And as the business matures, what's needed is different, and we support it with what's needed at the time. So at the beginning, it was very, we were talking all the time. We still talk a lot, but it was extremely involving at the beginning. And now it's a bit different, but it's still a great partnership. And we're talking pretty often.
Yeah, so I bring this up because 2X, both key partners there have deep operational experience. Right. It's not, you're not just sort of moving money around for LPs.
No.
It's a very active kind of where also exists.
Yeah, we specialize in working with emerging businesses like this to help bring them to life, bring them to kind of the next level. Oftentimes there are a lot of great businesses out there who just need a bit of expertise and a bit of capital to get to the next level, and that's what we do.
Now, how does your role change as the next level of ownership comes on board?
Well, I would say I'm not sitting as, Doug's right-hand person thinking through marketing at the moment, but we do have discussions about strategically where do we think we're going to go, what's the next place the platform could go, where could we take the brand and supply chain, just like anyone else that's involved in the business is doing. So I would say that the involvement is still there, but it's more as needed, or as Doug is looking for it, and as we are. Again, we're a small company. We're growing rapidly. There's always plenty to do.
Right.
So whatever I can do to help, we're on the same page, and I'm there to help. But it's more as needed versus when you're first starting out, we're almost like one of the entrepreneurs, or can be.
Yeah, and Jeff, I would add, one of the main reasons the partnership works so well is the vision's mutually aligned.
Right.
And then I personally really don't care where the good ideas come from. So any smart CEO...
Has Dean had any good ideas?
Certainly.
I think Doug's had most of the good ideas, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but certainly, as a CEO, you'd be really stupid not to surround yourself with great people. And on both sides of the fence, I don't consider the ideas needing to be generated out of Boulder, Colorado. I think the partnership continuation here and the newer part of the partnership on the Dean Foods side has been incredibly additive in terms of ideas.
So I want to hear some examples of places within the business where you're seeing these synergies really start to help the business expand.
The simple ones are some of the low-hanging fruit. And this goes back to my discussion that I think we've wanted to be conservative in terms of picking, because the reality is things are going quite well. And if we, in this environment I laid out in terms of the category and the competitive entrees and just how that's going, we've sort of looked at having the best of both worlds. On our own, things were going incredibly well. So how do we then start to plug and find the opportunities? And where we've mostly focused is low-hanging fruit. We buy a fraction of the cartons. And if I save a couple pennies on cartons because someone has a different contract structure or can help give us leverage on pricing, that's a huge game changer for us. I mean, synergies on costs and things like that. And I would say we haven't even started really to scratch the surface on this yet. There's still so much more we could work on. But I think Alex said it really well is, where the resources make sense, great. Where they don't, great. Customers too, just developing relationships with customers. I mentioned Walmart. We're in some Walmarts now testing our way and learning into that system. So those are examples. I would say most of them, in fact, all of them are categorized as pretty low-hanging fruit, the obvious ones.
Yep.
And, next generation stuff, new channels, innovation, other things, we haven't even gotten to yet.
Okay. Now, one thing I want to point out is you all sort of came in with some pretty big company experience, and that's likely one of the things that's made this go so smoothly. Not everyone in this room is coming in with that kind of ability to maneuver within these large organizations. So, what are some practices that non-big CPG founders can adopt to make their own transition smoother as they start to do these kind of two-step, three-step deals?
Well, I think you have to go in very clear-eyed in terms of who your partner is going to be. So this isn't, a Dean point, but if I were an entrepreneur and I hadn't had experience with larger companies, I would do a lot of work internally to get ready in terms of professionalization of the management team. I'm not suggesting that it has to be people with a big CPG background that are brought into the company. I'm just saying that, organize your team, have a strong board, and that could be entrepreneurs that are being brought in that maybe have done something like this before, done a series of transactions, audit your numbers, and kind of prepare yourself for a potential partnership or acquisition by a larger company. And then when it comes time, obviously do your homework on your partner. big companies are not all the same. They're quite different, at least in my experience. They have different personalities, different corporate cultures, and one company may have equivalent resources, but the people might be very different. And I think everybody in this room knows that money is a commodity. So if you have a strong brand, you have a lot of choices and flexibility to choose your partner, within reason. And that's, you should do your homework in advance to know, I'm comfortable with this type of company, I am not comfortable with this type of company, and maybe these 2 or 3 I don't really know, but I want to get to know them and develop those relationships early on. It's pretty easy to do, frankly. Forums like this are a great place to meet people, and there are many other opportunities to do that. And if you do your homework in advance, you can make a more informed decision.
Well, thank you. We need to move to an opportunity where these folks can continue to meet people. So I just want to say thanks for an incredible presentation and for sharing your time and wisdom with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks.